welcome, Ella. It's great to see you.
Nice to see you.
As I was saying before, I've been chasing you for a while to be on, so I feel like this is awesome. I'm super excited because of when I first met you at school. I really loved how you were sharing and articulating what you're doing and what your mission is and the impact, and just all the stuff you've done since. So congrats on all that in advance. And
thank you.
And welcome to our Leaders Who Care series. You definitely fit the bill for that moniker, that Leader Who Cares. And great way to start would be if you could just briefly introduce yourself, a little bit about you, family, whatever. Maybe something no one in the whole world knows about you. If you want to do that now, you can do that now too. And then we'll chat about everything else.
Sure. So I am the CEO of Vision Spring, and Vision Spring is a social enterprise. We combine the best of business practices and nonprofit practices to bring eyeglasses to people who earn less than $4 a day. And we think about doing that not as a health intervention, but in order to increase income and productivity and learning outcomes for students and road safety for drivers and everybody else who shares the roads with them. And then for me, I've been in the international health space really for my whole career. So I started off in Indonesia as an undergrad doing research on family planning. And it was in that research that I interviewed women about their experience with family planning and the role that played in them transitioning from the informal economy to the formal economy. And it was their voice that was at the center of my senior thesis. So if I think about that and tying it all the way forward to Vision Spring now, it's about the community centricity. It's centering on the community, centering on the customer, centering on the lived experience of the people who we're here to serve.
So you've kind of, well, first of all, tell us about family. Tell us a little bit of, some personal stuff.
Oh, sure. So I'm a mom of a little girl who's not so little anymore. She's 11, and I live in New York, and team members are all over. So Vietnam, India, Bangladesh, Kenya, Zambia, Uganda, Nigeria, and Ghana. And I don't know what else to say, except that I have become an eyeglasses evangelist.
I see what you mean, so to speak. It's terrible, but
we're full of puns. We'll have lots of those.
I'm sure. I was mentioning to you before, one of the things that caught my eye, because I got 3 boys, is how you get out of the city and walk in the woods with your daughter. I think we'll talk about this. We've come to realize what's important, in our lives, maybe even a little bit more during this. So I wanted to ask you. We've all heard about Simon Sinek's why, and I just want to ask you, why do you do what you do?
Oh, well, there's a surface answer and there's probably a deeper answer, right? So the surface answer is having had a career in international development and specifically public health for my whole career. And I always thought of myself as a bit of a public health dilettante, right? So I worked on neglected tropical diseases and pediatric malnutrition and diabetes and maternal child care. And what was really fascinating about coming to Vision as a novice to the topic is that there are so many problems that are really intractable in international development. And eyeglasses is not one of them. So this is a 700-year-old technology. 2.5 billion people have a problem with their vision that is correctable with a pair of glasses. And there's a singularity to being focused on vision that allows us then to attack it from many different angles. So it was really exciting to me to have this singular intervention that was tied through evidence to all these different SDGs. So poverty, education, road safety, decent work. It's like an accelerator to all of these other outcomes. And it's just really beautiful because it's also immediate. So when somebody comes in and they haven't read their Bible for 5 years and they're carrying this treasured family possession in a vision camp, and you can give them reading glasses, they're like connected back with their God. That's a beautiful moment. Or it could be a Quran or whatever the holy text is. It's the woman who's a seamstress and she can't thread her needle and has lost some of her customers because she can't just deliver that beautiful embroidery anymore. And all she needed was a pair of glasses. And, or the TV repairman, and who's retired without glasses. And so there's just this simplicity and immediacy to it. And so that keeps me energized every day. And then, I spent quite a bit of time thinking about, what does it mean to be a white woman who's, the cisgender, straight white woman in an international NGO? And what does it mean to have come from a family that was well-to-do and to have been a well-intentioned do-gooder and to have had all this, privilege? And what's my responsibility to use that now? Well, really, to use it for the extent of my career, but particularly in my role as a CEO.
Yeah, I mean, thanks so much for sharing that, because it's amazing. You talk about the income potential that's out there, and just how it opens. It's so simple how it opens so much up, and giving somebody dignity, giving somebody feeling like they're, that their self-esteem is up, the feeling value, all that stuff. I mean, it happens with, and then education, they can see and read and do all that. It's, I had a Deloitte partner years ago told me brilliance is simple. It took me a few years to figure out what he was talking about, but life is complicated, but the actual solutions actually can be simple. And so I can easily see, having come from being an executive director of a global nonprofit before I do what I do, how that energizes you every day easily, because you are impacting people every day. And so it kind of leads a little bit to, corporates and even family offices have for years not realized for some reason that, aligning with social impact is actually good for business. It's also good for attracting talent. So with that taken into account, you had your education, international economics, sociology, which I think is actually a great combo. And then you've got your personal experiences. By the way, where were you born?
I was born on a farm in Wales, and then I grew up in California.
Okay, well, you need to come home sometimes and see us. So with all those experiences, and it might have even been easier telling us the countries you haven't been in, for God's sakes, the way it sounded. But when did you really realize or differentiate yourself that you wanted to be, not to be cute, one of the leaders who care about impact?
Well, I think so I've always cared about impact, and I don't like to even use the word impact. What I've cared about is social change, that there is a before and after state. And there's a time A and a time B, and what can you do in the middle to affect the change? And I don't think I owned my role as a leader for a really long time. I think I was sort of reluctant to recognize that in myself. And it was actually only through other people's trust in me and a career track where other people championed me that I came to think of myself as a leader. So we can talk a lot about women owning that earlier. I think one of the things that is part of my journey is trying to understand why I was slow to ambition. So it's one thing to be a do-gooder, it's another thing to have hustle, to work really hard, to be task-oriented, and to aspire. But ambition is something different. And I think, the problems that we are working on are so big that, this problem we're working on is 2.5 billion people big. And if you want to make a dent in it, then our organization, Vision Spring has to think big. And, we've grown over the last couple of years. We were 90 people when I first joined. We're now over 300. We were in 2 countries. We're now in 8. Our budget has quadrupled. And we've gone from helping 400,000 people a year to helping 1.3 million people a year. And that feels awesome. But against this giant problem, it also feels small, you know? And so there's a lot of work that we do to change the ecosystem around us, and thinking about the evidence base that we can build and what that does for bringing other people into the sector, et cetera. But all of that's to say that when it comes to ambition, if we're going to be ambitious for our cause, and to make a dent in it and to bring about this big change, then we're ambitious for our organization. And at some point, we have to be ambitious for ourselves. And it's not from an ego-driven point of view, and it's not just for the leaders in the organization, it's for everybody, because to punch above our weight, we need managers to come forward and say like, hey, I've got this idea and I want to rung up and stretch for the next thing. And I saw this thing happening and there's this problem and I've got 3 ideas for how we could solve that. What do you think? And so the ambition isn't just for the person, you know, for the folks who are leading the organization, but really for everybody to be ambitious for themselves. And that you know, ambition is not a dirty word. It's definitely not a dirty word in the nonprofit space, and it's really not a dirty word for nonprofit women.
Oh yeah, right on. And you know, I compare a lot of things to sports, and you've got to create the space for people to, you know, to be part of the team. You got to create the space in business for people to come up with new ideas. That is part of a leader's you know, responsibility and legacy at the same time as other leaders. So I totally get that. You know,
I will offer just so on your question. You know, I think the other thing is like, if we reflect on our careers and sort of think, well, when were we making really important values-based decisions, right? And I think value-based decisions, some people will, you know, have a certain career and they'll get to their mid 40s and be like, okay, so now I'm going to have purpose, you know, and it's like, oh gosh, don't wait that long. Like you can have it earlier. So I think one of the really early important choices that I made was, I had been living in Indonesia. I had been working, I had been teaching at a university. It was when the Asian financial crisis hit that triggered a people power revolution. It brought down President Suharto. I was sitting in I was in a college town. I sort of had this frontline view to history being made. It was incredibly formative. You know, there were tanks in the street, and the farmers joined in with the students, and it was just it was extraordinary. And then I came back to New York 2 years later, and I needed to make some money, and I knew how to work in film production. So I was on a set, speaking of sports, and Patrick Ewing actually was the star of the commercial. And I had been on a series of like 6 commercials back to back. And there was just like so much ego involved and a lot of people yelling. I just remember this guy, it was actually the cinematographer. He just like yelled at me over a coffee that wasn't really warm that I had delivered in an ice skating rink of all things. So like, that's why it wasn't warm. And I remember thinking, it's corn chips, people. We are selling corn chips. Don't you know that there was just a people power revolution? Don't you just know that several, you know, millions of people just slipped back into poverty? Don't you know that there's like all these countries in crisis in Southeast Asia? And so I called my colleague who was hiring me. She was a production coordinator. And I said, Joanna, don't call me for 6 months. I have to figure out, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And anyway, fast forward, I ended up at Channel 13, which is you know, the public television station for New York. And then after that, I ended up at the Council on Foreign Relations. But that decision to walk off that set was probably one of my core values-based choices in my career.
See, I love that, because I kind of use that a lot. You know, when people are taking things too seriously. Like, you know, have you seen what's happening in the Middle East, or like, you know, the type of thing like that. And it's just, you know, kind of being grateful and being real about, you know, what value is going on. So that's hilarious and fantastic example. Especially with me being in LA, and one of my sons is an actor. I totally get being on the set and them doing that type of crap.
Totally.
I know. Hey, you know, when I first saw you at Skoll, and I was really taken by what you spoke about, and I was excited about, I'm going to say, your vision, pun totally intended, on hybrid business model.
Uh-huh.
Can you share what you mean by that and how you make that work for Vision Spring for the economic and social impact at the same time?
Yeah. So it starts with the premise that this really big problem can't be solved with charity alone. And, we could give eyeglasses away forever, but that still doesn't make a dent. And what we really need to do is catalyze a market. So the market for eyeglasses for low-income customers is broken. It's broken on the supply side. So if you think about access to affordable glasses, what does access mean? It's availability. So the glasses have to be close and convenient to the customer. It is affordability. They need to be priced within 1 to 2 days' wages, and they need to be aspired to. So that means people need to want them. And under aspiration, there are 2 other A's. So there is awareness. People have to know about their need for vision correction, and then they have to act. So they have to go out and want to seek those glasses. So you have to get the affordability and the availability on the supply side, but that aspiration is a demand side problem. So that means you've got to approach the person. There's got to be marketing, and there's got to be a value proposition, and you need to come to the person as a customer, not as a beneficiary. And because the beneficiary is a passive, and at its worst, God, people expect a beneficiary to be grateful, and it's a horrible model. And so if coming with to the people that we're serving as customers, that requires us to have a value proposition. And at the center of that value proposition is that the glasses are affordable and durable. So the glasses will last at least a year, if not more, under normal conditions. That they are being delivered by somebody who is knowledgeable and trustworthy, and that there's the dignity of choice, that people can choose to have the style that they want on their face, because we all care what's on our face. And there's nothing like people feeling self-conscious to not want to wear glasses. And that ends up being a really big barrier. So the hybrid business model basically says this customer who earns less than $4 a day can pay for the physical pair of glasses. They can pay for the good, but there's so much more that is required to get glasses on faces in terms of that mobilization and that awareness raising, the vision screening. And so we need to subsidize it. So what we do is we pair the buyer, which is the end consumer, with philanthropy, and we stretch that we stretch that philanthropic dollar with the user's contribution. Now, our ecosystem also has other buyers in it. So there's governments can be buyers, employers can be buyers. And in our case, we also work with some really big brands like Levi and Williams-Sonoma and Target. And they're looking at, they have a stakeholder interest in people who are in their supply chains. So we say, well, who are all the buyers in our system, including the end consumer? And then how do we stretch our philanthropic dollar to reach that customer? So that's what we mean by a hybrid business model. So we have multiple kinds of revenue. We have the end consumer's contribution, we have earned grant revenue, and then we have sales revenue, and we pair it with philanthropy.
See, there's so many things I love about that. And one of the things I think about is, and someone told me this a long time ago, and someone reminded me recently, who wants to be known when they describe you, first of all, as a non-anything, like you're a non-profit? Why would we do that in the first place? So that's just that quick comment on that. But it relates to the whole bigger picture of you're not giving them, you're not feeling sorry for them to give them glasses. You're actually uplifting them. You're giving them the dignity. You're giving them value. You're giving them the choice to do it. It's almost going back to your point about ambition. You're creating ambition in them, to be ambitious enough to say, this is great, and seeing where it could go and everything. I think
about it really is it's coming with an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity to correct your vision. We are going to make it really affordable. So we know that people can pay 1 to 2 days wages for glasses. And if they're earning less than $4 a day. So we will price it at that point. And that means that they're putting some of their money on the table. They are parting with their limited discretionary income for the immediate benefit of glasses. but we have to make that worth their while. So the product has to be durable, needs to be stylish, and the service that we offer has to be like friendly and knowledgeable. And we need to help people, because 74% of the people who are getting glasses for the very first time in their life. So our counselors need to say, like, you know, this is how you clean your glasses. And when you put glasses on, they're like a new pair of shoes. They're going to take a couple of days to get used to. So that kind of thing. And we, you know, glasses, people often think, oh, I need to go see a doctor. And that can be super intimidating. And we don't experience to be intimidating. So we actually came up with a sub brand called Wonder Glasses, or in Hindi, it's Chamatkar Chashma, which is the wonder and the magic of clear vision.
Yeah, it's you're actually being leaders who care. It sounds to me you're actually caring about people, and that. And quick segue here to India. You know, we're engaged at Fifth Element in creating a lot of omni-wins, bringing this one together, this one, and we call them omni-wins. I mean, you really pivoted to make an impact in India recently with COVID, and can you share then, we're talking about your business model, how you were able to pivot in your business model to do what you're doing in India?
Yeah, so, well, one of the things that's worth sharing is that I have a background in emergency response. So I was vice president of emergency response when I worked with AmeriCares. And when COVID hit, it just felt like the combination of, frankly, Ebola and a rapid onset emergency, like an earthquake or a cyclone. Like it just felt like in the spirit is what it felt like.
Yeah. And
it just seemed really obvious that everybody who's in healthcare was going to be focused on the need to control this pandemic. And vision, very rightly, would need to take a back seat to that. And that many of the care, so we work in a network of 400 hospitals and other healthcare providers, including community health workers, primary care clinics. And we thought, well, we've got a supply chain that is connected in China that we've been sourcing from, as well as in India. We have this incredible network of hospitals and other healthcare providers who are going to find themselves on the front line. And we have over 150 team members who know how to work in community doing counseling and mobilization and awareness for glasses, but there's no reason why they couldn't do it for infection prevention control and other kind of prevention efforts. So we just completely retooled our supply chain, and we added, within 2 weeks, actually, we got our first PPE out the door in India during lockdown. And then we started a door-to-door campaign about COVID awareness. And we weren't really sure where it was going to go. But in the end, last year, globally, we had distributed 2.8 million units of PPE to 161 partners in 8 countries. And we really built this auxiliary engine. And what was so amazing about that was we also took a values-based decision to do solidarity salary cuts across the organization. We didn't do any furloughs or layoffs. And because we had this other, really, it's a second mission that we adopted for ourselves. What it meant was we retained the full capacity of the organization. So by the time we got to Q4, we were 100% redeployed back on vision, because we also retooled our whole vision camp protocols. We integrated infection prevention and control into our vision camps. And so by the time we got to Q1 2021, we had our biggest Q1 on record ever. And now we're in a second wave in India, and it was just like we just throttled one gear back and one gear forward, and we pulled back on vision and we pushed forward on COVID response again. So we've raised $1.5 million for the COVID response. We're deploying 1,000 oxygen concentrators, and we're going to integrate vaccine hesitancy and vaccine registration into our vision camps. So, and we'll come back into vision for sure. But the urgent need is to help India breathe, and that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, not to be cute again, but it just showed your vision and your experiences about being structured in a way that you can pivot, because most businesses have a major pivot, and you utilized all your resources and relationships to do it, to really make an impact in what was a horror, or still is to some degree, a horror movie that's happening. So it was super impressive. So congrats on that. And I want to. With that said, my grandparents were from Kiev, and they would always say, "As long as you have your health, that's the most important thing." Just like that, actually.
Yeah, we always say health is the first wealth.
Exactly. And then it was education, but health had to, and it wasn't a slogan. It was like they're talking from real experience. So with everything that's gone on, we talked about Mother Nature smacking us like crazy with everything from COVID to wildfires in California to racial everything. Have you seen internationally kind of like an awakening of people finally realizing like what is really important?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, I would universally, yes. I think the question is then, what's important? I think, you see it everywhere from the movements around climate change, right? And the singularity of being on a small planet, and nothing has made that more obvious than COVID.
Yeah.
I think we see it in understanding the disparities in our own healthcare system in the United States, and the fact that it's Black and Brown communities that have had the greatest losses, both economic and mortality. And then we're looking at it at the disparity of the vaccine in terms of who's got access and which countries have been able to get largely vaccinated, and who's still at 1% and 2% when we look at sub-Saharan Africa and low and middle income countries in general. So all of those disparities are brought to the fore. I would say from a sector point of view, one of the really important things that has also happened, if we think about the parallel racial justice movement that has also emerged, well, it hasn't emerged, it has been around for 400 years, but which had a new set of participation in the last year. Right. And a new level of energy, it has also brought to light the need for the international development community to think about itself in terms of the legacies of colonialism and neocolonialism, white-centeredness in philanthropy, and white supremacy. And so, and some of it just has to do with power dynamics in general. I mean, even within our own teams in India, right? A lot of our team members are really amazingly educated and coming from elite backgrounds, and some have come from really humble roots and have carved a path for themselves. And we're working in really low income communities, and we have to, in some cases, unlearn some bad habits and come with a sense of humility. And so there are some things that we've been trying to put center in our organization, which is one, making sure that we are pushing decision making as close to the customer as possible. As we have grown the organization, and this is really a journey for us, which is multiple years in the making. So Vision Spring by design is all locally led. We don't have any expats in any of our offices. We have kept the US team very small. So the rest of the organization has grown in leaps and bounds. We're only 10 to 12 people in the US, and we're hundreds of people where the work is really getting done. We have done things like, try to eliminate the word headquarters. We might have been founded out of the US, but we're really just a support office here. Like, the work really gets done. And then some of it's really about making moves in terms of how we make decisions and where budget and strategy responsibility falls. So we actually reorganized our entire profit and loss statement and how we structure the budgets so that it's a bottom-up process. There is more accountability at the country leader level, and that decision-making and authority over resources is really held locally. And so that's all a process, and we're very much an organization that's still in the making, but it's just looking at distributed leadership and where and how decisions get made are really centered to the conversation we're having in our organization.
Yeah, it's so great. I like what you said, where the work is actually being done. Even though the work is being done at, also some work's being done at US, I mean, where is the real work being done? Where was it the place?
Where are we touching our customers, right? So we want to, at the core, at the center of our values is to help others to do well. And that starts with our customers. And it's also, team members and partners, but it starts with our customers.
So I want to, I mean, I live in LA. We always say, you got to leave them wanting more, because then you can do a sequel. We may have to do a sequel. But I want to ask you, you segue a little bit into the corporate world, because you said employers before too, working with them and brands. What responsibility do you see business leaders who care, having to play in caring about the financial, physical, and mental well-being of their employees, but also in your case, your customers, and really, I mean, like really caring where they see it also absolutely is good for business?
Well, there's a couple, so there's so many levels to that. I'll just highlight, for example, our partnership with Warby Parker, because I think that's an example of the ways in which, so Warby obviously is known for its buy a pair, give a pair program. Mm-hmm. One of the most important things that people should know is Warby doesn't give us product. They actually give us unrestricted funding, which is on a pair equivalent basis and is awarded based on our performance. So it's we think of it as buy a pair, give a pair 2.0. But if you go to the venture, the impact investors, or even just the venture capitalists, the do good part of Warby Parker is not why they invest. And people buy their glasses from Warby Parker because they're stylish and affordable. And the buy a pair, give a pair thank you comes after the purchase, when you open your pair of glasses and it says thank you for helping somebody. And so that's got a customer retention value, and it helps people feel good about having chosen Warby Parker. But the singular number one benefit to Warby is on talent, and it's attracting top talent and retaining top talent. And it puts Warby at an extraordinary competitive advantage to have social impact in the DNA of the organization. And it wasn't second, and it's not marketing. They were founded on having social impact as core to them. And so I think the biggest mistake that corporations can make is the equivalent of greenwashing, but for social impact, right? Where it's just marketing gimmick, and where they're talking to a problem and not actually helping to solve it.
Well, you're talking my language when you talk talent. I see that all the time. And there's one of the tipping points for leaders to actually start caring is that they're not going to get the best talent and keep the
right.
best talent. And they're not.
And I'll tell you that's true for us. I can't tell you. So we are, half the people in our organization come out of the for-profit space. Mm-hmm. So they're coming from so we are very much a blend. We've got people from the nonprofit space and the for-profit space, and they come into the gray space, which is social enterprise in the middle. And a lot of people will take a salary cut for the other benefits of being and living and working in community, for being able to feel good about what they're doing every day. And we're lucky to be able to give people to be really a vehicle for other people to realize their purpose.
I can relate to that too. Years ago, I got my dream job offer with a pro hockey team, and an offer to go to this nonprofit and at less pay. And it's a longer story, but the only person that told me to take the less pay nonprofit was the president of the hockey team that offered me that. Because he said, I know you want this, but your opportunity to travel the world and meet leaders and stuff like that, you got to take the others. So that was another leader who cares. That's part of my my story.
Yeah.
But, we'll definitely.
I will say on the team side, though, I mean, the other element. There are elements, obviously COVID has required us to all be super sensitive to the different ways that people respond to stresses and stressors. I mean, our team in India has been hit so hard. Some people having losses in their immediate families, some people having, just dealing with crises all around them. And throughout the organization. So, just as an example, we brought in psychological counseling and mental health practitioners to be able to be available for team members. In the US last year, no one was taking any vacation days. So we actually had a team meeting and we said, listen, what if we created a wellness, we took 5 of our vacation days and we created an office-wide wellness day, and we all chose to take our PTO at the same time, because if we all took our PTO at the same time, we wouldn't be on our email and we would know that somebody else wasn't there to respond. So everybody agreed. So we added 5 wellness days to the calendar so that every single month has at least one 3-day weekend. So choices like that, and those are, they're responding to what team members need, and doing it through dialogue also, not just taking a sort of a top-down decision, but engaging folks in those choices.
Your ROI on that is spectacular in so many ways. It's in so many ways. We're actually working with a lot of clients right now, recommending every client has a chief well-being officer in the company and stuff like that. But all right, well, I'm committing you to a sequel, because we're gonna have to do one. But thank you so much for participating, sharing all the great work you're doing. It was worth me being persistent to get you on it.
Thank you.
No, but I really appreciate what you've done in the past and what you're doing, and keep making a difference.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks so much. Thanks for all you do for shining a light on all of us. Thank you.